Hi you guys, and welcome back to my channel. I'm Carrie Penny, the Happy Crafty Homemaker. And as the title suggests, I'm going to be stepping into a little bit of controversy today. So I remember the night that Pantone Caron collaboration was announced or released at Michael's stores, and the flurry of posts of people being absolutely irate about it. So I waited, probably too late to even do a review now, but I waited to buy any to wait for some reviews to come out. I saw a couple of people who bought it, touched it, squeezed it, talked about it. One showed how it was constructed in the little mini hanks here, but I only saw one review ever come out that actually worked a project with it, and that was Ross over at the Smells Like Yarn podcast. And he actually knit a hat using it, and it passed his approval. So I was like, well, maybe because most of the people I was reading using the yarn, because they were crocheters, maybe they were having more issues with it because the way we hold our yarn when we crochet versus knitting can affect those things. So I finally decided, all right, well, I'll go ahead and do a review on it myself. Now, of course, it's taken me like 3 weeks to work up projects, but I did. And sorry, my husband's downstairs yelling at Pippin because he keeps getting on top of the mantle. I came up with a hat and cowl set that was knitted and a hat and cowl set that is crocheted. And I'm a little confused, to be honest, as to the negativity around this yarn. Number one, out of the gate, I will say it is inconsistent, having now used 6 balls of it. There are some inconsistency issues, but overall, I actually really like the yarn. First off, there are a couple things I want to address with this, and this is my 3rd time attempting to film this. I'm going to try to not babble incessantly, but so a lot of the things I saw was it's not actually bulky weight yarn. It splits. It is too expensive. And those are really kind of the 3 things I wanted to address right out of the gate. The first project I cast on was this Bubbles hat the pattern is by Kristen McDowell. Yes, Kristen McDowell. Links for the pattern pages for the 2 hats will be down below. My project page for the coordinating cowls will also be listed down below. And in the description notes, I actually explain how I altered the hat patterns to turn them into cowls. So all that information will be listed down below. But when I cast on for this hat, this was the first thing I did. And it's not that the yarn was splitty, but I used a backwards loop cast on because I find that to be the most stretchable cast on edge for hats. That's my preferred cast on for hats. And in doing that, it untwisted some of the plies. So this yarn is not plied like most of the big box yarns are plied. Hopefully I can get this to show. This is very much, it looks very tubular. And when you twist the ply, it fluffs into strands. This is not a 4-ply worsted weight yarn. This is a very unusual ply. I have worked with yarn very similar to this in the past. Premier used to have a yarn that was 80% acrylic, 20% wool, I believe, that was very similarly plied. So I did get a little I wouldn't call it splitting, but lost to the twist of the yarn itself. Now Pippin is up here with me. You show everybody your new collar. So he is very dapper with his little bow tie collar. Say hi. Say hi. So with the cast on, I did have some issues in my first row because I do a backwards loop cast on and then I immediately start knitting in the ribbing pattern. For me, it was a little fidgety, but once I got rolling with it past that, I literally had zero issues with it as far as splitting goes. Now, I did have one knot. Of course, he found the one piece of paper in my floor and is now rolling around in it. I did have one knot in this ball. And that was a little frustrating because you only get 127 yards in the whole thing. So in having that knot, I'm already losing a foot of yarn for that knot. But as far as how it worked up beautifully. The color is astounding. This blue, I cannot get to show its true amazingness in any light. It is far more dynamic than it shows off. It's very similar to the aqua color of the London fog jackets in the late 80s, early 90s. That almost electric blue color. Very, very dynamic and definitely brightens up what is a very jewel tone feel to this colorway. But yeah, so we had one knot. I do not like weaving in the ends for this yarn in knitting. It's a very slippery yarn. It's 20% merino, 20% nylon, 60% acrylic. The nylon makes it very, very slippy. So weaving in the ends for knitting, I would definitely recommend separating your plies, which a lot of knitters already do that when working with a bulky weight yarn anyway, just to reduce the bulk. But I'm trying to find a spot. You can see here where I've already got an end that's slipping out. But all in all, you know, I was very pleased with it, aside from the one knot that was a little frustrating. The next thing I did was, and this colorway is Frozen Berry, I believe. This one is Strawberry Chill. When I balled this one up, I actually had two knots in it. So if you watched me during Vlogmas, you saw me kind of starting to hedge my bets with this yarn because I was a little frustrated with the knots. I'd had one in the first ball, two in the second ball, and in this one, it actually hampered my ability to complete the color order as the pattern was written. Both of these patterns were written by designers specifically to use Caron Pantone. And this green here should have actually been blue. But I did go ahead and break into my next ball of green to get to there. The blue was like in the middle or something like that. So I didn't feel like it was the first one out. So I was like, fine, I'll just grab the green. As you can tell with both of these, the fabric is very drapey. That's exceptionally unusual for something crocheted like this, where you do have so many textured stitches. And this one in particular is a third loop half double. And it is a very bulky, cushy stitch. The chain is created by bending the half double crochet over and knitting on, or crocheting into the back loop, the third loop of the half double. So it adds a lot of bulk. I mean, you can see the texture lift there. And I mean, just absolutely beautifully pliable. The next project I did was the matching coordinating cowl. Two more balls went into this and no knots, no problems. I did have In this one, I also had a defect in the yarn where part of the plies were looped off and a little bit longer than the rest of the yarn. I was able to ease that back in. I didn't have to lose yardage for that, but I did lose yardage on this. With the cowl, absolutely 0 knots in 2 sets. No problem. Same goes for the matching knit cowl. So the killer for this yarn for me, I would have to say the worst part is there does seem to be inconsistency in the manufacturer. I did not have time before filming this to contact Yarn Inspirations and ask them about it or have a conversation with anybody in customer relations about it. I will be doing that hopefully next week after New Year's. But I wanted to get my review up right now because last night while I was on the Michaels website, they had the Pantone yarn on sale for $4. Plus there was a 20% off coupon through Honey. So now if you're curious about using it, would be an excellent time to buy it because you are getting it at 50% off plus 20% off, which is what I bought mine for. I bought mine for $4 a ball with a 20% off coupon. So as with most of the stuff I've reviewed on my channel so far, there are pros and cons. This one actually had some things that are in the middle that you need to know to make your purchasing. I feel like you ought to know my opinion on them to make your purchasing choices. But first off, the cons are it does appear to be inconsistent in its manufacture. It is a very small amount of yarn. You are only getting 127 yards, but most bulky yarns are anywhere from 100 to 150 yards per ball. So I would have preferred this to be closer to 150 given the fact that you're going to be losing a significant amount of yarn in between your color changes if you wanted to make, say, a single project or even a set. You're going to be losing yardage in between balls regardless, just because it is separated into balls instead of being a cake style yarn. So I would have preferred maybe 150 yards versus the 127. I think that's a really odd amount, to be giving for this. I did have issues with knots in 2 out of 6. And it is fidgety to weave in the ends in the knitting. After doing the hat, I became a bit better. This is not a slip. This is actually where I left a little bit of a tail there, but you can see that I was able to weave in around my bubble stitch, no problem. And it created no puckers whatsoever on the cowl. So I did, as I worked with it, get better at weaving in my ends with it. But normally when you have a wool and nylon blend, the nylon gives it slip, but the wool gives it some grip, even if it's merino wool, which is a very smooth fiber to work with. This being mostly acrylic and nylon, it has so much slip to it that it's very hard in knitting to get a very fine, detailed end woven in without needing just that little tag at the end to prevent it from pulling through. Or you have to lock your stitches. I had to lock mine and go through once, go back and go back around the bobble on one piece. So it took a little more than 3 inches to actually weave in my end and feel like it was actually secure. Now, I'm one of those OCD people that don't trust knots anyway, but in this yarn in particular, under no circumstances would I recommend knotting this yarn. Even the knots that they use to tie the hanks slip immediately off. I barely had to cut any of the knots out while balling up my yarn. For a lot of people moving to the midsection, a lot of people were very concerned with the time-consuming nature of having to ball up 5 separate hanks of yarn. I did 2 timed manual no assistance, no chairs. When Ross did his, he used his knee. I didn't even do that. I literally held it up, unspun it, and then balled it. And that took me 17 to 20 minutes for the two that I timed. One was 17, one was 20. I did, if you saw my Vlogmas video, come upstairs and wind 2 hanks on my Swift with my ball winder. And that took me 5 minutes and like 30 some odd seconds. So 5.5 minutes to do that. I would not recommend using a ball winder unless you have a small quantity ball winder. I have the 6-ounce Stanwood, and it was too loose in a cake to really be cohesive. I actually found it harder to work with by doing that, and I'm not a big hand-wound ball person. As much as I love looking at like gobstopper balls, they're just, I know that would drive me insane knitting with that, just the weight of the ball dragging the yarn. I'm very much a cake person. I cake most of my yarns that aren't in like the industrial skeins, center pole skeins. For me, it really wasn't a con. It was one of those, while I'm watching something more interesting, I'll sit here and ball my yarn. Like I said, with the Swift, it was significantly quicker though. So if you're like me and you have it constantly set up, or if you're getting ready to wind off a whole bunch of them at once, it would be nothing to just drop it on the Swift and hand wind your ball. Another thing that's in the mid thing that I wanted to talk about is the slitting factor. Now, I did both knitting and crochet with it. When I cast on for this, I had no issue with splitting, but I did when I cast on the hat. So the yarn is it's got a lot of air in it. So as you're casting on with it, it can be a little bit fidgety. But ironically, the crafters that I saw complaining the most about it were crocheters. I actually found this yarn to be more suitable to crochet than I did to knitting. I had no issues with splitting, no issues with my hook getting caught. I used my size 8 Chalgu needles for this, and I used an Amore hook. I think it's a size I, maybe J, for this. I used whatever the pattern called for, the Arctic Gems pattern called for. I love this. I just love the way it feels. It is very luscious feeling. So the Amore hooks are inline hooks. So, I mean, that might have had an effect on it. And my experience in working with them, those are the only crochet hooks I use anymore. And the Chalgu needles, or my zings now, are really the only knitting needles I've been using for the last 4 months. I just started using my zings for Christmas. So I would say you're probably not really going to have an issue with splitting overall, beyond a cast on edge if you're knitting. If you're using a fatter, wider hook, you might. And I can see where you might, sorry about that. I can see where you might actually have issues with it. But I had 0 with the crochet. I had more issues knitting it than I did crocheting it. So I'm very surprised at the negativity, confusion, or conversation I've seen about it when it comes to the crocheters. I could just have a unique hold, or I might not unfurl my yarn as much as I'm crocheting with it. The way I balled my yarn might have something to do with it. I'm not sure, but when I crocheted it, I had 0 issues with splitting. I had a couple of stitches when I was getting tired where I split the yarn, but as far as my ability to come into the stitches, to hook the stitches, I had no issues with splitting. So it might also be the fact that I have used a yarn that's plied like this before too. I I'm one of the people that can knit not super, simply soft, no problem, but I can't crochet with it to save my life. So that could be a contributing factor for why I didn't have an issue with splitting. I have seen a lot of people complain about it. I've seen a lot of people mention it. Cost for me is a mid factor. It's not a pro, it's not a con. Michaels has it regular price at $7.99, which is very expensive for a single ball of yarn, but a lot of yarns are coming out at much higher prices than we're used to seeing. I would have to say this is definitely a premium big box yarn product. I wouldn't say it's necessarily, to me, worth $8 for this amount. If it had been closer to 150 yards, I would have said definitely worth $8. And that little bit of give gives you more than enough room to complete any of these projects without a knot interfering with your ability to complete the hat. At 127 yards, I did find issues when I had 2 knots in a skein in a single color of a skein, being able to complete my project without having to have another ball or using a different color than intended. However, that being said, while I don't think it's worth regular price, I don't know many of us, at least that I watch on YouTube, friends that I know in real life, my wonderful subscribers, I don't know any of us that don't use a coupon when we shop at Michaels, whether it be a 20% off, 25% off, or 30% off coupon, or a off including sale, or buying it on sale. I don't know anybody who goes to a big box store unless they need just that one skein to finish a project who doesn't buy when it's on sale or with a coupon. Right now, Michaels is running this $4 for $4. And there's a 20% off sale price that is good on yarn. So is it worth what you can get it for at Michaels? Definitely. I really love the yarn itself. It's squishy. It's beautiful. It has, just amazing drape, twist texture. It feels yummy and delicious. It's silky. It's satiny. It really is a delight to work with as far as how it feels while you're working it and what your final fabrics are. So I would say cost is not necessarily a con for me because I know every week I get a 20% off coupon. Or a 40% off or a 50%. Like, I know I'm going to have a coupon to buy this yarn. I would say for the amount that we get in this, $6 would have probably been a better retail price for me. But I don't think $8 is necessarily unreasonable based on the price of yarn as we're seeing them. In the coming weeks, I've got an order coming from Joann's that was a late Christmas purchase. And in there is one of their Buttercream Luxe boutique yarns that is a bulky weight. Joann's is charging $9 a hank for it. It's 100, I think it's 134, and I needed 3 to do the shawl pattern that I picked for it. So it's kind of, that's about what we're seeing for the price of premium fibers at a big box store. The yarns, I bought a bulky yarn while I was in Oregon at Woolly Woolly Wagtails in Washougal, Washington, when we went for my birthday trip over there. So if you're in the area, go to her shop. It's amazing. But I paid $24 for a 200 yard hank of bulky weight yarn. So if you're comparing it to LYS prices or Knit Crate prices, Knit Crate, we just got, do I have my box over here still? No, I don't. Actually, I do. With Knit Crate, we just got this bulky yarn, which is 60 yards. So I paid the equivalent of $12 for this. And this one is 100% wool. A lot of other people hated it. I actually really like it. If you've got more and want to send it to me, feel free. I'm good, thank you. So by comparison, I mean, that's kind of the going rate for a lot of bulky weight yarns. I have seen the complaint and argument that this is not a bulky weight yarn. I knit this on a size 8 needle, which is normally what I'd use for a worsted weight. When I stretch it, well, of course the light is now actually in front of me when I'm trying to show you this. You can see how big the stitches really are with a size 8. I did a wraps per inch test, which I will show here. It is in fact 8 wraps per inch, which does make it a bulky weight yarn. I would agree that it is a light bulky, but it is definitely a bulky weight yarn. I don't know any other way of how to demonstrate that. I tried it with 3 different of the colors, 2 from one set I used, 1 from the other. It is definitely bulky weight. All of them were 8 wraps per inch. One was actually 7. I'm not sure if that was user error or the yarn, but definitely bulky weight yarn. So for a bulky weight yarn, getting $127 for 127 yards for $8, when it's a mix of the premium acrylic, which is super luscious, merino wool, which everybody loves, it's gorgeous to wear, and nylon, which is more expensive to manufacture than acrylic is. I mean, I really can't say that it's not worth its price. It's not what I would pay for it, once again, and I don't think Caron ever intended anybody necessarily to buy it at $8. Knowing Michaels always has a coupon, knowing Michaels frequently runs sales. Right now is the Michaels and Joann's, by the way, are both running amazing sales on their yarn if you're looking to bulk up your stashes after your holiday crochets and knittings. So, having gone over some of the complaints I've heard, my cons, and my, what I'm calling my mid-tier, it doesn't really go as a pro or a con. It's just a neutral fact. I want to get to the pros. Out of the gate, the color. Holy crap on a cracker, people. These are some of the most sumptuous, gorgeous colors. And each one has a beautiful combination of muted shades, super hyper vibrant shades. And I know on camera, these 2 oranges are not showing up as being very different. But this one is a muted, slightly burnt color. And this one is like neon orange. If you're in the Southeast, you're familiar with Clemson University and their garish uniforms. This is Clemson orange. This is heading a little bit more towards Texas, but not burnt enough. But, I mean, you have gorgeous contrast. You've got this very cool icy blue with this super saturated electric blue. And then you've matching it with 3 gorgeous jewel tones. So your color palette to work with, that is a pre-built palette, is stunning. I could wax on poetic for years about how gorgeous this is. This coral is a super bright coral, and it's totally brought down by this terracotta color and this forest color, and it's brightened with the cream and the pale blue, and those just set it off gorgeously. So the colors are a major pro to me. The next pro is the texture of this yarn. It glides through your fingers. When you're tensioning this yarn, it just glides beautifully like butter. In the finished project, you have this amazing drape. This is actually, I mean, as stiff as this is, it's still creasing where you want it to crease easily. All I did was flap it on. And if I was wearing a jacket that pushed it up, I could very, very easily cover my nose with it if I needed to. I don't live in a particularly cold or windy place, but it's nice to have that if you want it. It's got beautiful resiliency in the way it stitches. It's got gorgeous stretch. And I mean, it feels amazing. If you've ever had a high thread count sheet, and you know how cotton sheet, just regular Egyptian cotton, regular cotton, whatever cotton you like, and they feel like satin when you get into bed, that's what this feels like. It is absolutely sumptuous, satiny. It's delectable. I have spent the last couple days working on these things, just doing this with my finished projects. I mean, it's just so wonderful. I hope at the end of the day, Caron makes improvements to the manufacturing of this yarn and keeps this yarn in production. I would love to see them actually come out with full-size balls of this yarn that are closer, like I said, to the 150 yard range. It is just so amazing, and it is worked up very similar to the Vitalana yarns from Knit Crate. It is just that sumptuous, satiny. It feels a little bit more durable than the Vitalana, which is the 80% merino, 20% nylon that they sent a couple months in a row. But it's got that same wonderful texture to it and amazing drape. I mean, amazing drape. This would be an amazing chalette just around your shoulders, just to, in the spring. Oh, this in the springtime, if that's your color palette, would be stunning. So that covered texture and drape. I also factor to this. Hold on just one second. Okay. My phone is kind of freaking out over the size of the video, because even though this is my third time filming this, I'm going even longer, even though I'm babbling less. I'm not going off in side tangents as much. So I really like the coordinate factor to this. I love the color cards. I love the fact that when you're done making your project, if you were wanting a lining fabric to coordinate, you can take this color card with you. I love the fact that if you are ordering something from another company that uses Pantone, once again, you've actually got your Pantone numbers are listed here, which is also great, as most sports teams list their Pantone sets. What I would like to see Caron do, what I think would make this something that would be more sustainable to add to their current existent lines, whether they maintain the collaboration with Pantone or not, is to release this yarn in individual balls of 127 to 150 yards per ball. So the total quantity of this or more in each individual color. My problem in using this is you're very limited to how much of each color you use. This assumes you want to use equal amounts of all the colors. What I would like to see them do is break these into individual balls. You don't necessarily have to stop this line altogether like this. This could be your starting position, but you want to add more of the brick tone, or you want to add more of the fuchsia to it. So you can grab just that, and keep this on the ball band. Keep this as these are the colors that coordinate to this set. And say when you're making a project, say you want to make something larger. My great aunt was talking about how this would make a beautiful blanket pattern. I can't really make a blanket out of this yarn. It would be too time consuming because I'd get 2 rows per mini hank. But if they released this yarn in individual balls that were the size of the whole thing, then I would consider something like that as being possible. But say I want more of these 2 colors or these 2 colors, depending on the brightness I want my blanket to be, I could buy 2 of this, 2 of this, and 1 of the other 3 to make a larger project. So I would really love to see Caron improve this idea in making each one a full hank. Or you can buy one of these and buy an extra pink just to, say you want to do the border in just the pink. I don't think that would be too much, especially given how many companies are sending out personalized, including Caron already, cardboard display units for their yarns. I mean, clearly this could very easily be made into balls where you slot them in side by side. And I think that you could get a lot more mileage from something like this if you sold it in individual balls of 127 yards, as well as also having your coordinate base set that has a little bit of all of your colors in there. So, I mean, all in all, I actually really liked it. I didn't think I would. We got off to a little bit of a rough start. There are some, like I said, there are some consistency errors. There do appear to be some issues with the production line. Sorry, I've now been talking for about 40 minutes straight. I need some water. All that being said, I would probably give it a 3.5 out of 5 stars. There are some issues with it, which are what drop it down from being a 4-star yarn. A 5-star is a, holy cow, I will never use another other than this again. Worsted weight wool, merino, alpaca. This is my go-to. This is the holy grail of alpaca yarns. Just for the record, I don't have a holy grail yarn. I have some that I adore. I mean, 4.5, we're almost there. Sheepish, the Bernat Sheepish with Vicky Howell was one of those where we are almost there. I wish there were a little bit more twist to that roving style yarn. Other than that, discontinued. So having a 5, you would be pushing it real hard for me to give something a 5 out of 5 stars. It doesn't get a 4 because of its inconsistencies. It is good. 4 for me is a workhorse. I'm going to use this yarn repeatedly over and over again. It's going to be something that I grab constantly. Vanna's Choice to me is a 4. It is a solid 4. It's soft. It washes well. It doesn't pill. It does its job the best that yarn can be. That is the best mainstay, everyday workhorse acrylic yarn, in my opinion. Super Saver is a 3 for me. So just to give you an idea of where we are on the scale, I use Super Saver a lot. I like it a lot. It is very durable, but it is not very comfortable to work with, and it's not very comfortable until you steam block it. as a fabric. So pro cons, I mean, I use a lot of Super Saver, don't get me wrong, but it's a solid 3 for me. This is a 3.5. It has all the makings to be one of the best yarns in a big box store. They need to work on not necessarily the packaging, but they need to expand the line. They need to expand the line to include larger quantities. Number one, if we're going to stick with this kind of thing, we definitely need about 150 yards minimum per hank. If we're not going to expand the line to include individual colors of this yarn. If we do expand to include individual balls so we can build our own collection to make projects with, I think that would improve the problems we perceive with the cost value, because we'll be losing far less of our $8 in that. I mean, you have to think, you're losing up to 5 feet every color change, assuming you just knit straight through this. So I would give this a 3.5. It's definitely something worth trying, especially while Michaels has it on sale. If somebody wants to buy you a treat gift and you don't know what to ask for, it's definitely something I would say, why not? I would definitely not pay retail for it at all, ever. No excuse for paying retail for this. Between the sales and the coupons and everything else, I don't think it's necessarily worth the $8. I don't think $8 is a horrible price to ask for it though. But we are, like I said, we're heading into some questionable territory. But I would also like to point out, nobody's complained about the price of Barcelona. Barcelona is, yes, you're getting substantially more per ball, but that yarn is also very expensive. So I think we have to be careful in how we perceive the price of this, because this does seem so scant, but I don't think it's that bad. In particular because aside from the minor manufacturing inconsistencies that I found, which, like I said, they're minor in how they happened in the frequency, they're major in the inconvenience. And for something that is going to be $8 a ball, yes, I expect a higher quality of manufacture. I do feel like it was pushed out a little too fast. I don't think quality control was done as heavily on this as it should have been, but I have also noticed that the quality control on a lot of the Caron yarns, with the exception of Caron cakes, oddly enough, have been lax. So I don't know if they're trying to push things out too fast, or if they've really spent so much energy concentrating on Caron cakes because they were such a surprise hit. I do think they need to improve the quality. And if I do get in touch with a human being, I will let you guys know, probably in a show and tell or something. Or if it ends up a big deal, I will do a dedicated video about it. But all in all, it's a 3.5. It's definitely worth trying, especially while they're on sale. So as an added bonus, because I did like it, I'm giving 3 hanks of it away. Comment down below, obviously subscribe, like all the normal things you do for a giveaway. Subscribe to my channel, like the video, comment down below with what yarn you've seen coming out recently that hasn't gotten a proper review. I know that Lion Brand in particular has been machine gunning yarns out. Red Heart has been machine gunning things out, but they're not really being, I'm not seeing a lot of airplay for a lot of the Red Heart things. Once again, Smells Like Yarn seems to be one of the few channels that is test running a lot of what Red Heart offers, because Red Heart is so much more than With Love and Super Savers. I mean, they have a huge variety of things. They did go down the rabbit hole for a while with some of their boutique collections. So anyway, I tried to give you a very thorough review on this and a very thorough walkthrough, especially because there was so much negative initial reaction to it. And even if you watch my Vlogmas videos, we did not get off to a very happy start. But all in all, there are rooms for improvements, but give it a shot. So I will leave the excuse me, contest open until January 4th. And I might not pick the winning yarns or winning commenter's yarn to test run next, but I will be reading the comments to get ideas to see what you guys would like to see, because I don't have a channel without you guys. So I want to ensure I'm testing out things that y'all are actually interested in aside from the subscription boxes. So you will have a chance to win either these 3, which are Spicy Blossom, Spicy Blooms, or 3 of the Strawberry Chill colorway. Your choice. And it is open to international shipping, as they should be fairly cheap, quick, and easy to send. So good luck, everyone. Comment down below if you've used this yarn and had a different experience than I did. Let me know. I would genuinely love to see your experience, because that's one of the reasons why I ended up reviewing this one first as an individual yarn, is I just didn't see that many people talking about projects they had made with it and how it worked for a whole project. I saw a swatch, and I saw a lot of people who just sat there doing this and unwound the hanks. So I would genuinely be interested to know what your experiences with this yarn have been. If you are interested in buying it, last night it was on sale for $4. The yarn sale is still going on, so I'm assuming that's still out there. I did find the 20% off coupon using Honey. I'm not affiliated or sponsored with them. It's just a way to save a little extra money. So I think that wraps us up. Down below were the patterns. I know a lot of people were very interested in the patterns I used, and also my project page with the alterations for the cows. So I hope you guys have a wonderful evening, and I will see you guys again real soon. Mwah! Thank you.